Hey everyone, welcome back to bageltcg. Today we're going to be doing a deck tech on the Dash deck that just took down the recent calling at Singapore. It just concluded. It was a split format event, so half draft, half classic constructed. Because of that, obviously the results are a little skewed. It might make it so that some heroes didn't do as well just because the pilots weren't as good at draft. But generally speaking, should be pretty accurate results. We did have Dash take down the event, and that's the deck we're going to be doing the deck tech on today. We also had 4 Briars in the top 8, which was a huge surprise. To me, at least, I thought Viserai was the better Runeblade. I thought Dash was better. I mean, you can see from my most recent tier list, I had Viserai and Dash both in the top tier. I definitely didn't have Briar up that high. So while Briar didn't take down the event, she definitely overperformed from what I expected. The rest of the top 8 is about what I expect. Icelander is in the top 8, but I usually expect about one, Dark Horse deck. And we also had Icelander take down the Battle Hardened, though, so I think I could be underrating her as well, but definitely underrated Briar here. But yeah, I think Dash might be the best positioned deck in the Classic Constructed format right now. She's really great. I really enjoy her playstyle, and I think she's basically a good matchup into everyone. So we're going to hop in the deck tech, but before we hop into it, I want to give a shout out to our sponsor, Whipped Wizard. Check out their link in my description to help out the channel and get great prices on cards. You can also support me on Patreon here. I have bonus deck techs in terms of like sideboard guides and some bonus content, as well as cool giveaways. The great support I get from Patreon lets me get new stuff like a light that I have now for my first video, so hopefully you can see my face maybe a little better here. So yeah, thank you everyone for all the support on Patreon. Definitely helps me improve the channel directly. But let's hop right into the deck here. So a really cool Dash deck by Jason Sheng, I think, and yeah, just took down the calling Singapore here, so congrats to Jason. The deck isn't standard completely, but I think it might be the new standard because it seems so well put together. One thing that surprised a lot of people that weren't as, into the Dash sphere of Flesh and Blood was this weapon Talishar. This is a crucible weapon that basically has never been played at a competitive level before, but it lets you attack with it for 4 for the cost of 2 resources for 3 total times before it destroys itself. This is a deck that doesn't really use its weapon much, so instead of using his pistol, which is just a 1 for 2 damage, he opted for this 2 for 4 damage, which is, obviously more damage for the few times that you do actually need it. We do have the pistol in the list as well, but that's for when we're going against control decks and we need to do pistol spam, setting up a bunch of items. Outside of that, the equipment suite is pretty normal. The Achilles Accelerator for some extra action points and Arcane Barrier, Crown of Providence to filter your hand and block, Goliath Gauntlet for extra 2 damage, Teklo Foundry, which is really great piece of equipment here for 3 total block and extra resource every turn if you need it. And then the Visiertronic Model I. This is basically just for when you need Arcane Barrier 3. That's the only time you play it, but this, in combination with the Achilles Accelerator, gets you Arcane Barrier 3 against wizards and the like. But let's hop right into the list here. So this is basically an aggro Dash list. It can side into the control package that you can see on the side here, but the main board is definitely tuned to mostly be aggro. I think the only matches you'll probably do pistol spam is like against Guardian and maybe Illusionist, but even then you probably don't need to do it against Illusionist. I'm not exactly sure when you would and wouldn't do it there, but Guardian's the main one that you want to sideboard, but most of the time you're just going to be on this clean 60 here. It has, I believe, 21 blues here, and I'm fairly certain you'll probably be on those 21 blues most of the time. The sideboard is pretty tight to just being only for against control. And this main board is pretty tight as well. Our blues are all of the 9 rainbow that we play of the generic boost cards. So we've got the 0 to 60, the throttle, and the zipper hit. We play all 9 of all of these. They have an amazing rate. Like for example, red 0 to 60 is a 0 for 4 go again. With basically no cost to the go again, and it blocks for 3. So Dash kind of gets those better rates than any other deck in the game. I mean, To get this 0 for 4 go again, you might need to play 2 non-attacks in a deck like Briar, play a Mordred Tide, a Mauvrin Skies in a deck like Viscera, but Dash just has it. All you have to do is banish the top card and make sure it's Mechanologist, and as you can see, we only play Mechanologist cards in the main deck when we're boosting. So we're playing all 9 of those. We're also playing Rainbow Throttle. Obviously not as great of a rate as 0 to 60. You do lose 1 power on each of them because it has an effect. But it still blocks for 3, still comes in for some decent damage, just a red head jab here. And it can take equipment if you can get multiple of them in a row, which is pretty nice to sometimes take equipment earlier than your opponent wants you to block with it, or just take like a Tunic or something if they've already used some other equipment. So Rainbow T-Bone, pretty nice card as well. Outside of that, we've got Teklo Pounder, kind of the star of the deck here. So you'll start with one of these in play, you'll have 2 more in your deck. It's kind of just 6 free damage, right? So in combination with Teklo Pounder, that has 3 counters every turn. You remove a counter when you boost, and your first boost attack gets that +2 damage. And Goliath Gauntlet here, we have a total of basically 8 free damage that just starts in play. You don't have to pay any resources for it. It just starts in play. You have Teklo Pounder, which does 6 over 3 turns, and Goliath Gauntlet, which does 2 whenever you want, which is really powerful for an aggro deck just to have that 8 free damage in play. Your opponent's at like an effective 32 life just from turn 0. So really awesome to have that. We can also get the other 2 Teklo Pounders if we draw them, or with Spark of Genius. Spark of Genius has 2 real targets in this deck, and then kind of a one-of that you can see here as Signal Jammer. Most of the time, you're going to play Spark of Genius at the end of your turn. You will either pitch into it for resources if you want to grab a Teklo Pounder. That's if you have like a lot of blues in your hand, and then you'll take kind of an off turn. But if you got a gas turn with a bunch of damage and you have the Spark of Genius, you can arsenal it, or you can play it for 0, which is the more optimal play, and get this Teklo Core for 0 resources. That gets you basically 4 free resources later, and you'll draw a card that you can then arsenal. Spark of Genius doesn't have Go Again, and the only way to give it any sort of Go Again is just by getting an action point from your boots. So most of the time, you're just going to arsenal the card you draw with it here. We do have the other third item, just one of Signal Jammer here. Most of the time, this is just going to be a blue that we're either pitching or just boosting off the top. But sometimes it'll be good against Rune Blades or against Wizards, maybe. When you just really want to limit their non-attack actions, so like against Briar, for example. You can just find the Signal Jammer. It also costs 0, and it makes it so they can't play 2 non-attack actions and get that Embodiment of Lightning. And it lasts for 2 turns for them, which is pretty great to see. So a nice little one-of, just stays in the deck. Worst case scenario, it's a blue. It doesn't block, which does kind of suck, but I think it's worth it just to get that blue that can sometimes really hose a Rune Blade. We've gone over most of the deck just because so much of it is these rainbow attacks with Zipper Hit, Throttle, 0 to 60. So we have only these few at the top here before we go into the sideboard. So we've got Payload here. This is a 2 for 6 with Dominate if you've boosted this Combat Chain. So make sure not to break the Combat Chain before you play this if you want it to have Dominate. Doesn't have Go Again itself, but it's a nice finisher. 6 Dominate is a pretty solid rate, and it blocks for 3, so it does everything we really want. Maximum Velocity is a really powerful attack. I mean, the best rate in the game for sure as a 2 for 10. It just has a really high cost that you need to boost 3 or more times this turn. But we have quite a lot of ways to boost for 0 resources with 18 total 0 cost boosts with T-Bones and 0 to 60s. So if you just play 3 of those and then pitch your last card to play Max Velocity, boom, you've got a 10 damage for 2 resources attack. Since you can pitch a blue and you'll still have 1 floating for Max Velocity, you can also replace one of those 0 cost attacks with a 1 cost attack. So you can play, 1 0 to 60, 1 T-Bone, and 1 Zipper Hit, and then you'll still have those 2 floating for Max Velocity. So really solid there. Obviously, it does take a 5-card hand basically always, just because there's no way otherwise to get the resources unless you do have 2 free resources from Teklo Core, which sometimes happens. Sometimes you can have 3 0-cost attacks, maximum velocity, and 2 resources from Teklo Core and just go off with that hand. So really powerful card. 3 of can sometimes be risky because sometimes you can't make it go off, but I think this deck with the 9 T-Bone is tuned enough to make it go off pretty consistently. We have 3 red High Speed Impact and 2 blue. We don't care too much about the effect on this one. I mean, it's nice if we can get it to hit and then make Max Velocity have Dominate. But most of the time, we just like the rate. It's just a 1 for 4 with Go Again, or the blue is the 1 for 2. So solid card here, and just kind of fills the gap we have in the deck. And then our power card here that we're going to usually want to use Goliath Gauntlet on is these 3 Combustible Courier. This card, has the only really relevant on-hit in the whole deck of giving our next boost +3 if it hits. So we really want this to connect. We want to get it as big as possible using Teklo Pounder and Goliath Gauntlet. If we can use Goliath Gauntlet and then Teklo Pounder to make it come in for 8, has a pretty decent odds of hitting. And if it doesn't hit, they're probably blocked out with most of their hand anyways. So really solid card, and it's definitely one of our strongest tools as the aggro deck, and we really want it to connect. I mean, it's a pretty low amount of damage for only 2 resources, but if it does hit, it ends up being a total of 2 for 7, which is a really powerful rate. So great card here, and definitely want all 3 copies of the red. So that is the main aggro package. Really love Boost Dash. I played it like a month or 2 ago at an armory and went 4-0 at my armory. It was really fun, and I just enjoy the aggressive playstyle. It kind of feels like Burn from other card games. You just throwing attacks that are just straight damage, no on hits most of the time, and just trying to kill your opponent as quick as possible. The sideboard here is basically just the 6 items to set up. So we've got 3 Induction Chamber to let us give our pistol Go Again, and 3 Plasma Purifier to buff the pistol. And then we've got 3 Sink Below as a defense reaction, 3 Unmovable, and then an extra one since we have the slot for it as Reinforced Align. These are because you're usually doing this against a Guardian, and also I should say I think we probably do this against Lexi as well. And so we're going to want these reactions to stop their dominated attacks and block out as much as we can until we set up our items. Usually we want 2 or 3 Plasma Purifier and 1 or 2, or like about 2 or 3 also Induction Chamber. And then we can just start shooting them a bunch with our pistol. In this version, you're not boosting at all because you have so many misses. You're adding 7 non-Mechanologist cards into your deck, so you're trying to not boost if possible and just block and set up your pistol. Obviously, we will be using pistol in this version and not Talishar. In the boost version, I think we're mostly on Talishar. And yeah, that's the deck. It's honestly pretty simple. It's a pretty simple deck, and once again, still pretty budget. I mean, this one's not even running the Command and Conquers. I'm sure this total deck is probably less than $300, and it just won a calling. So it lets you know you can bring a really budget deck, probably less than $300. Actually, we can check right now how much this deck was, and you can take down like a major event. Definitely nice to have a powerful budget deck be available. It's probably going to throw in like a cold foil dash. Oh no, so without even optimizing, you can see it's $351 here. And I'm sure there's ways, like it has the pistol here for $1.30 when it's a free token you can get from any store. So you can probably make this even cheaper, under $300, but without any optimizing or anything, it's $351 here. Really, really budget option that's nice to see. And yeah, I mean, I think this deck's awesome, and I think it's really powerful, and will probably be a top contender at Lille in the coming weekend. Yeah, only a weekend from now. So thank you guys for watching. I did get a lot of requests for this deck in my last deck tech, so it kind of worked out that it ended up winning the event and I can make a deck tech on it here. I appreciate all your support. I think I will probably make a Dramai deck. She has been my favorite hero for the past few weeks now, and I really enjoy her, so I'll probably do a personal deck tech on Dramai this week sometime. But yeah, thank you guys for watching. Let me know what hero you want to see next other than Dramai. I appreciate your support, and I'll see you guys next time.